begin. Here's your wrestling news for January 21st, 2026. Your headlines for today include: initial injury report was wrong. What actually stopped Javon Evans' match on Raw? Did WWE drop the ball on Rusev already? His absence explained. WWE planning massive WrestleMania 42 program for Liv Morgan. Backstage fallout after Trey Miguel's AEW termination, double standards accused. Ethan Page sparks real backstage tension, details emerge. Shocking scene as WWE star is arrested during live broadcast. Keanu Carver storms out of NXT interview after heated exchange, and more. Last night's episode of Raw saw Javon Evans' match against El Grande Americano come to an abrupt halt after Evans was ruled unable to continue and escorted backstage by WWE medical staff. The bout marked just Evans' second match as an official member of the Raw roster, and the sudden stoppage immediately raised concerns about a possible shoulder or arm injury. However, PWInsider later clarified that the real concern was a potential concussion. More clarity came from Brian Alvarez, who explained on Wrestling Observer Live how the injury occurred. According to Alvarez, the match went off the rails during a mistimed apron sequence that resulted in a brutal accidental headbutt. They were doing some complicated spots. At one point, they're in the corner, and I think Javon got backdropped onto the apron. And I think both guys thought the other guy was supposed to headbutt the other guy in the gut, and so they both at the same time ducked, and they headbutted each other like rams on accident. Despite the collision, Evans continued wrestling for several minutes afterward, even hitting a springboard lariat before the broadcast went to commercial. Javon got the worst of it because he got clonked, and he just kind of stopped for a second like, whoa, but it's possible that during the break, maybe he was forgetting stuff or asking the ref something, and that's when it got called off. Dave Meltzer also added context, noting that the decision to stop the match likely came from backstage, possibly from WWE's medical team monitoring the situation live. Both PWInsider and Wrestling Observer Live report that the 21-year-old was evaluated backstage for a concussion and was later cleared to leave Belfast with the rest of the roster as WWE continues wrapping up its European tour, an encouraging sign that the injury may not be serious. With Evans' main roster run just getting started, the incident was a scary moment, but early indications suggest WWE acted quickly and cautiously to avoid further risk. Do you think Javon Evans should be eased into a lighter schedule early on, or is this just an unfortunate accident that can happen to anyone? Sound off in the comments below. Rusev hasn't appeared on WWE television since his loss to Jey Uso on SmackDown, and now there's clarity on why. According to Mike Johnson of PWInsider Elite, Rusev's absence is not injury-related. Instead, WWE has intentionally pulled him from television with the goal of preserving his momentum and reintroducing him when the timing is right. Rusev was last seen competing in the Last Time Is Now tournament, where he delivered a strong showing before falling to Jey Uso. At the time, the loss felt less like a setback and more like the beginning of a renewed singles push, which made his sudden disappearance notable to fans. That absence has now been explained as a strategic pause rather than a creative dead end. The report also noted that the Street Profits are currently being handled in a similar fashion, though Rusev's situation has drawn more attention due to the buzz surrounding his performances late last year. Whether WWE opts to bring Rusev back as a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble or holds his return for a storyline-driven moment later on, the message from backstage is clear: Rusev hasn't been forgotten, he's being held in reserve. How would you book Rusev's return to WWE TV? Should he remain a solo force, or would you pair him with a new faction? And most importantly, do you worry he could face the same creative fate as his earlier WWE run? Sound off in the comments below. Liv Morgan may be on the verge of the biggest push of her WWE career, and it could all begin with a major moment at the Royal Rumble. During a January 19th episode of Self-Made Session, Self-Made Pro revealed that WWE has internally discussed the possibility of Liv Morgan winning the Women's Royal Rumble and heading straight into a WrestleMania 42 title match against Stephanie Vaquer. There are people within WWE Creative who think Liv Morgan should win the Royal Rumble and go straight into facing Stephanie Vaquer, and that's absolutely in play, Self-Made Pro said. There have been high-level meetings over the last couple of weeks to hammer out some plans for WrestleMania. This report aligns with earlier notes from WrestleVotes Radio, which previously indicated that WWE has been positioning Morgan for a major spotlight heading into WrestleMania season. According to that update, officials have discussed elevating Morgan as a true centerpiece of the women's division on the company's biggest stage. Morgan officially declared herself for the Royal Rumble during last night's Raw, putting her squarely in the conversation as a potential winner. If WWE ultimately pulls the trigger, it would mark Morgan's first ever Royal Rumble victory and her first marquee singles championship match at WrestleMania 42. With creative discussions already underway and WrestleMania plans beginning to take shape, Liv Morgan's road to WrestleMania could be about to take a dramatic turn. Do you want to see Liv Morgan win the Royal Rumble and challenge Stephanie Vaquer at WrestleMania? Is this the right moment for her career-defining push, and should Vaquer drop the title? Drop your comments below. Enjoying the video? A quick like goes a long way in helping us grow and deliver more wrestling news you care about. Trey Miguel's abrupt exit from All Elite Wrestling didn't just confuse fans, it reportedly caused frustration behind the scenes as well. According to Fightful Select, several AEW talents were unhappy with how Miguel's situation was handled, particularly because the decision to release him did not come from Tony Khan, AEW Creative, or the locker room. Instead, multiple sources indicated the call came from above. That phrasing has fueled speculation about possible involvement from Warner Bros. Discovery, AEW's broadcast partner across TBS, TNT, and HBO Max. While no direct confirmation has been made, the implication alone has raised eyebrows internally. When word of Miguel's release first reached the AEW locker room, the reaction was reportedly disappointment. Several wrestlers voiced support for Miguel and the Rascals, with many feeling he was cut loose far too quickly after signing. At the center of that frustration is a perceived double standard. There were a number of wrestlers who felt like there were standards applied to AEW talent that don't apply to other personalities who have appeared on WBD properties, the report stated. Sources pointed out that individuals affiliated with Warner Bros. Discovery have made far more controversial public comments without being removed from television or losing opportunities. Miguel, however, was quietly released with little explanation, which only deepened the frustration. Fightful also reached out to its TNA sources, who echoed the same sentiment. Miguel never had backstage issues during his time there and was viewed as professional throughout his run. AEW never formally announced either Miguel's signing or his release, but internally, the handling of the situation has not gone unnoticed. With talent openly unhappy and no clear reasoning provided, Trey Miguel's departure has quickly become one of the more puzzling and quietly contentious stories in AEW right now. Do you think AEW talent are justified in being upset over how Trey Miguel was removed, or was this a necessary decision made at a higher level? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Due to the volume of major news coming out of the show, we weren't able to cover every segment from this week's NXT in full. The episode opened with Ava backstage, instructing private security to keep a close eye out for Tony D'Angelo, a clear sign that last week's chaos was still hanging over the brand. The in-ring action kicked off with a high-energy opener as Elio LaFleur made his NXT debut by challenging Ethan Page for the NXT North American Championship. While title matches traditionally feel more suited for main events, opening the show with this bout was a smart move, immediately setting a strong pace and engaging the crowd from the jump. LaFleur looked impressive in his first outing, showing confidence and polish against a seasoned opponent. Page was the ideal veteran foil, guiding the match while still allowing the newcomer to shine. The contest was competitive throughout and genuinely felt unpredictable, with LaFleur pushing the champion further than many expected. In the end, All Ego retained the title by grabbing a handful of tights during a roll-up, narrowly escaping with the championship intact. Even in defeat, LaFleur left a strong impression, and Page was clearly rattled by the challenge, making it feel very possible that this rivalry isn't finished yet. What did you think of LaFleur's NXT debut? Should WWE continue this feud, or was this just a one-off showcase? Let us know in the comments. Things weren't over for Ethan Page after his North American title defense. As Page was making his way back, Ricky Saints came out to the ring, and the two shared a brief moment of tension. What makes this interaction interesting is that Page is still the reigning North American champion. Not long ago, Saints and Page were locked in a heated rivalry, and that unresolved tension hasn't disappeared. Saints didn't directly challenge him here, but the stare-down felt deliberate, almost like a reminder that their issues aren't fully settled. Do you think WWE is planting the seeds for Paige versus Ricky Saints again, or was this just a subtle tease with bigger plans ahead? Sound off in the comments. In a backstage segment, Ethan Page once again stirred the pot while speaking with Miles Bourne ahead of his qualification match next week against Dion Lennox. Page suggested that the outcome would depend on which version of Bourne shows up, openly teasing the possibility of a heel turn. WWE has been planting those seeds for weeks now, and this exchange only added more fuel to the speculation. With the qualifier looming, all eyes will be on Bourne to see whether he stays the course or finally snaps when it matters most. Since returning from his hiatus, Tony D'Angelo has become increasingly unhinged, and WWE NXT has yet to define whether he's operating as a babyface, a heel, or something far more dangerous. Last week on NXT, D'Angelo inserted himself into Joe Hendry's match against Dion Lennox, first attacking Lennox and then turning his aggression toward Hendry as well. The chaotic interference led to a confusing finish, with Hendry ultimately pinning Lennox after Tony's involvement, raising more questions than answers about D'Angelo's motives. That instability continued this week. D'Angelo appeared following Shiloh Hill's victory over Josh Briggs and attacked both men without warning. The situation escalated quickly, prompting NXT General Manager Ava to call in law enforcement in an attempt to rein things in. However, that wasn't the end of it. Despite police presence backstage, D'Angelo resurfaced later in the night after Shawn Legacy defeated Eli Knight, once again laying out both competitors. This time, Ava personally returned to the ring with officers in tow. Tony didn't resist and calmly allowed himself to be arrested, bringing the night's chaos to a chilling close. One notable detail is that Tony didn't attack Ricky Saints, who was by the commentary desk on either occasion. What do you make of Tony D'Angelo's behavior since returning? Is WWE building toward a major character shift or something bigger altogether? Drop your views below. Up next, Jaida Parker made her way to the ring and was met with a strong ovation from the crowd. The reaction clearly resonated with her as she began her promo, speaking about her return from injury and the need to let her work speak for itself. She delivered her message with noticeable emotion, focusing on proving her doubters wrong while staying true to who she is. There was an authenticity to the promo, with Parker appearing genuinely emotional at points, giving the segment a real and grounded feel. It stood out as one of her strongest mic performances since arriving in NXT. The moment was interrupted when the lights went out and Blake Monroe appeared in the crow's nest. The two exchanged words, escalating the tension, but the confrontation ended without any resolution. Overall, Parker's promo was a standout segment, and if handled correctly, her developing feud with Monroe has the potential to become something very compelling. NXT continued to spotlight Keanu Carver this week, highlighting footage from LFG that showed his heated argument with Booker T. Carver was later spotted in the background of another segment before emerging from Shawn Michaels' office, hurling abuse at HBK and making it clear he had no interest in doing a sit-down interview. Despite that, Carver eventually sat down with Blake Howard, but the interview went nowhere. He refused to answer questions and escalated things further by becoming physical with Howard. At this point, Carver is being positioned as the ultimate wild card on the NXT roster, unpredictable, volatile, and increasingly dangerous. WWE is clearly leaning into that chaos, and it's quickly making him one of the most intriguing characters on the show. Elsewhere on the show, Swipe Right picked up a victory over Chase U. WWE also confirmed a singles match for next week, with Joe Hendry set to go one-on-one with Jackson Drake. The biggest announcement, however, came later. On February 3rd, the Women's North American Championship will be decided in a triple threat match as Izzi Dame defends the title against Lola Vice and Thea Hale. With three very different styles colliding, that matchup has the makings of a standout title fight. Zarya appeared genuinely frustrated tonight over Sol Ruca not helping her secure the TNA Knockouts Championship at Genesis. She warned Sol that her shoulder is already injured and made it clear that if an injury ends up costing them the match, the blame should not fall on her. As a side note, Zarya's match against Lei Ying Li at Genesis is highly recommended viewing. The main event featured a triple threat women's tag team match with Zaruka facing Ren Sinclair and Kendall Gray, as well as Fatal Influence. The winners would earn a shot at the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Throughout the match, Zarya's shoulder remained a concern, and the tension between her and Sol was evident. Despite that, they managed to work through it and pick up the win. Zaruka will now move on to challenge the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions, the Elegance brand. To close out the show, it was announced that next week the NXT Men's Tag Team Championships will be defended as Dark State take on OTM, while ladder match qualification bouts continue, including Andre Chase facing Keanu Carver. That's NXT this week for you guys. What did you think of the show overall? Which segment stood out the most to you, and why? Sound off in the comments below. Don't miss our next video coming at 5:30 p.m. Eastern with all the latest wrestling updates. Smash that bell icon and select all notifications so you're always in the loop.